Hey, Adam Fortuna here. A couple months ago, I did this post on how I create these photo albums like this with a lot of images that are kind of like in different number of columns and occasionally movies in there that autoplay. And I've seen this on a couple other sites, and it's a really cool effect. And I've been trying to streamline the process for creating these because I was finding out that the actual process of creating these took so long that I didn't even want to do them. So I've been working to make it a lot faster, and I was going to kind of show where it's currently at and see what people thought. Mostly because it touches on Middleman and Lightroom, and I haven't seen much, if any, in terms of videos that kind of touch on the combination between photo and programming, especially with the web. So this is kind of my process for creating these. So I'll import everything into Lightroom for a trip or an event, and I'll usually create a folder and kind of move everything into this folder. And then from there, I'll start creating folders for everything that happened at the event. So this is a trip out to Salt Lake City for the Pluralsight Author Summit from last January. Okay, so after that's done, I'll get rid of that sort one. And so now we have folders for all the different things. So the next part is picking out which pictures are actually good. And I've definitely found that looking at the photos I take makes them better in the long run. Still have a long ways to go on that, but looking at them at least has made them better. So I'll go through and I'll use P and X for pick and exclude, which is kind of like flagging the ones that I like. So pick X, P, P, and it's Shift P for capital P. Okay, so after everything is picked, I'll go through and filter by flagged, so I'll only see the ones that I liked, and I'll give them all ratings. So ratings determine in the galleries that I've been doing how many columns they should be. So right now, anything that has a rating of 4 will look like this. It'll take up 12 columns. Anything that has a rating of 5 will take up 100%. And then 1, 2, and 3 will be smaller than that, but will be based on the number of other photos in that folder. So for instance, if there's only one file and it's in a folder and it's a 2, it'll still just like output it as 12 columns. So like this one, there were probably like three files left, so it created this kind of thing. So I'll go through and add ratings for these just with the numbers, like 4 on the keyboard, and then the right arrow, 3, 3, 5. Okay, so now that everything has ratings, I can actually go through and add titles and captions. So these are what'll show up when you hover over them. So like these kinds of things. And if you actually click on it, some of them will also have like title text at the bottom here. So that would be the caption. Hotel entrance. The entrance to the Grand America Hotel in Salt Lake City. And technically I could go through and do that for all these, but I'm going to skip that. The only other one is that there's also a creator. So if I didn't create the photo, I'd make sure to mention that here. And I can sync these. No. Well, I can add that. So kind of the next step is kind of the most tedious part of all. So I'm not going to do it for everyone, but doing any kind of development, post-processing on these photos, I'm still not very good at this. So most of what I've learned has just been trial and error and the occasional YouTube video. The only big one I've found is that you can select all of them. And then if you hold Command, you can change this sync option so it syncs them all. And then if you wanted to, you could set sharpening to all of them, maybe to like 75, and noise to like 40. And that kind of cleans them up all in a uniform way. If you wanted to do auto toning on all of them at that point, you could too. And then probably go through them one by one and see which ones you actually liked what the auto toning did. And then start tweaking them manually from there. Like this one, I might make a little darker there, a little darker there. See how that does it. Oh, no, it's not good. It was better before. So yeah, you play with the colors at that point. And that that's definitely the process that takes the longest. That plus the adding the titles for each one. So at this point, let's say I've added titles for everything, I've developed everything, I'm ready to actually move it into a gallery on the website. Kind of what I do at that point is I make sure everything has a rating, because otherwise it won't show up. And then make sure everything's selected, and I only want the flagged ones. Then I go to export, and I'm going to export them into a folder within my Middleman site. And kind of the big key to this is to give a custom name. So I'm going to give a custom name of, like, the group of these photos is going to be Author Summit, and then the folder is going to be like Author Summit, Beer High, Food, Hotel, and sequence will be just a unique number, and then rating will be that 1 to 5 rating. And technically you can get this rating from some of the metadata, but for videos it's not as obvious, and sometimes you might not want to have the Ruby process opening up massive videos to get the metadata. So this way has just been easier for this. And lastly, there's this run any command post process filter. And this is a paid filter that's really cheap and really worth it. And basically what it does is you can have it execute a command at the beginning or after all of the files have been written. So with Lightroom, when you export, it's going to dump all these pictures into one folder. And so, you know, it would take a long time for it to get from one folder to a full post like this. So that's where the post-process script comes into place. It will be run with all of the files as input that were exported, and it'll turn all those photos into a post. So I'm going to run this and then kind of go over how that works. Okay, so after it was done, that's when the post-process script started. So the post-process script moved them into these subfolders. And then after they were moved into the subfolders, it determined which images would take up how many columns, and it wrote that data up into these YAML files. And then after everything was done, it opened up the website with the finished product. So there's the one we added a title for, and all these other ones we didn't really add metadata for, but we could. And yeah, It looks like things are in there. The video's not working for some reason, but I can hear sound off of it. Yeah. So it created the post, and kind of the way it did that was that post-process script. So what that post-process script actually did was it got this as content. So this is a big text file. It was passed in as a temporary file with all of the images in their original locations. And so what this post-process script did was it created a new folder for each of these groups: hotel, author summit, skiing. And you can see that here. And it moved the files into there. And then it grouped them up together and said, like, oh, this one has a rating of 5. That one's going to take up 12 columns. And the way it did that step is by creating a new gallery for this folder. So author summit. And it said, okay, this one was 5, so it's going to take up the full page. This one was 3. This one was 3. So let's make those about as wide. So they're both taking up 6 columns. This is just using Foundation, so there's a 12-column grid. So the next step might be, like, once we see these and figure out, like, oh, let's change these so that they're not like so many of these in a row. Let's move this photo down to the bottom. So you could go into skiing and you can move this file down there. And when you do that, Middleman's going to restart, because every time you change one of these YAML files, Middleman has to restart. And then we'll see, yep, it was moved down there. So one of the next things is that there's also this watch task that I wrote, which will watch for any changes to these gallery files that involve changing the number of columns. Because, like, for this one, this call 3 or call 6 one, that photo is actually here and here. So that's 6 columns, that's 6 columns. And if we look at the actual files for that, what was the name of that one? 8. Oh, snow. Yeah, so it's this little file, 100K. So it's a lot smaller than the full out 1.3 meg file. But if we change this gallery, we'd want these 2 files to potentially be deleted and for it to change. So let's say we wanted to make this one 4 and this one 8. As soon as we save this gallery script should pick it up and say, like, oh, you changed some files. Let's rewrite them. So it deleted the other 2, created a 4 width and an 8 width version, and wrote those out. And since we saved a YAML file, Middleman reloaded as well. There we go. So now it's 4.8. So some of the next steps on this are that, like, the videos imported usually are way too big, so I'd probably have to go into some other software and shrink those down. And I'd go into the actual post and actually start writing for each of these categories. I'd probably reorganize these categories to match the kind of the order that things happened on the trip. So, like, skiing might have been the very last thing I did, so I might put that at the bottom. The way that some of the other parts work is the rake file is just listening for changes using this listen gem to anything in the galleries folder. And if new files are added, it'll prepare them, which concept of preparing is just generating all those thumbnails. Otherwise, it'll refresh them, and refreshing them is the process of deleting the ones that it sees as changed and creating the new ones. The post-process script is so hacky. It's kind of just pieced together with glue and like popsicle sticks. So it'll take in that big manifest file, and it will, yeah, there's full on paths here. I'm not even caring. But basically it'll get an array of all the different galleries that it needs to work on. And then for each one of them, it'll create a new gallery file. So that's like the part where it breaks down those 5 rating things to be equal to full page, or 4 rating to be equal to like 12 columns. And then it'll go through again and it'll write the actual images to the file system. And it'll generate the content that will be the actual blog post. And lastly, it'll use that content in a file post. And I have quite a bit of front matter on these for determining like the collection and kind of the poster and the header. I have this concept of like this is the header, or this is the, I don't know. One of these is a poster, one of these is the header, like this image on this screen, and then this one up here, I think, is the header. That would make more sense. And how many photos are in here is just this little guy. And videos. Videos I've just been doing manually because I haven't automated that yet. But you can really just, open this up and click here and say, oh, there are 28 images. So it doesn't take very long in the first place. And then after it writes that file up, it opens up everything in the browser. And you'll see it's down here under events because it's not in the travel section by default. So yeah, that's pretty much the process. I've really been a fan of Middleman so far, and it really feels like kind of a toolkit for being able to create static sites in kind of the most like fun way possible. So even though this code is kind of hacky, like you could structure it in a way that makes sense on the actual like model level. And yeah, if you're doing anything cool with Lightroom or Lightroom and other programming languages, I'd definitely be curious to hear about it. Thanks, and hope this helped.